Sarah went from Christianity to being a witch. At the age of 12, she cast her first spell. Sarah is a millennial. Now, I did some research. We have more millennials leaving Christianity, going into the, quote, New Age movement, and going into witchcraft and sorcery. We're talking to Sarah. Sarah, you with me?
Yes. Hi, David. I'm here. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thanks for coming on. I want to tell everybody how I met you. I was speaking at the Watchman convention, and you raised your hand, and I looked over at you, and you know why you shocked me, Sarah?
Why is that?
Because you were the only young person in the audience. Okay, you're a millennial. How old are you?
Right, I'm 25.
25. Okay, so you told me, I was on stage, that you really wanted to help with the ministry and help getting people, getting the word out. And that touched my heart so much. I wanted to bring you on the show so we can share with everyone what you're doing for God. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's take you back to the beginning. You were raised in a Christian home. Was your mother and father a Christian?
Sure. Yeah. So as you said, I kind of went from Christianity to Wicca to New Age back to Christ, which is, thank God so much. But yeah, I was raised in a Christian home. I grew up going to the church every Sunday until I was 18. But I think these things started to enter in really early on.
Okay. So Sarah, what kind of church did you go to? Was it non-denominational? What kind of church was it?
Yeah, so my dad, my parents were non-denominational. My dad had kind of an evangelical streak. His story alone is a testimony on its own. But yeah, we kind of hopped around, and we had like a Baptist church and a couple of other places that we called home for a while, but he kind of came from the streets, my dad. And
okay. So what was it about the lack of Christianity or the power of witchcraft? What was it that caused you to turn from God to the darkness? I mean, obviously, if you would have been fulfilled in this Christian world that you were in, you would have stayed there. What was it? Can you tell me that one thing that happened that you can remember that caused you to turn to witchcraft?
Yeah. So I think really when I called it quits with the Christian worldview was when I watched at the time a film called Zeitgeist. I think it was released around 2012. But it was really a film that wanted to debunk the person of Jesus by comparing him with other historical figures. And unfortunately, it wasn't until much later, really recently actually, that I found out that most of that film is false. But it changed the lives of myself and the group of friends that I was spending time with, going even to youth group with, getting baptized with. It changed all of our lives in a really earth-shattering way.
Okay, wait a minute, hold it. What was the name of that film?
So it's called Zeitgeist.
Okay, how did you see it? I mean, did you watch it? Where'd you watch it?
Yeah, it was just kind of floating around on YouTube at that time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you said you and your friends watched it. I mean, you must have talked to each other about it. You promoted it within yourself.
Yeah. It was kind of bizarre. It was like we were all friends and we would go to youth group together and talk about God, but then it was like slowly, there was drug use happening, and it just got less and less innocent. But yeah, we talked about these things with each other, and it was almost like we all came to these realizations at the same time, right? By consuming information that was really designed to break, the Christian faith in
Okay.
particular.
Okay, Sarah, question, and this is a hard question. I'm looking for an honest answer.
Sure.
Was the church you were going to, was your family, were your parents, were the older mentors in the church, were they really with God, or were they just playing church?
That's a great question. I mean, from what I remember at that time, and then what it was in the leadership was that folks didn't know how to have discussions about the outside world or about outside influences, just because they were generally ignorant of it. And so we kind of just went to the places who had those answers for us. And unfortunately, those were really dark places in general.
Okay, well, let's dissect this for a moment. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm trying to understand what you're saying. So let me say what I think you're saying, and you tell me if it's right. There was no honesty. There was no openness. There was no real connection with God. I'm talking about for real, not
Right.
but therefore you saw that. You smelled the counterfeit. You smelled the lack of trust, the lack of faith,
integrity.
the lack of integrity. Thank you. And so you said to yourself, look, if this is what God is, if this is what Christianity is, I think I'm going to find some place at least where people will talk about something, even if it's dark, and they'll be open about it, even if it's evil. But at least, hey, you know what? I'm getting an honest bill of goods here. Is that right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that was the thing. From the beginning, I was earnestly searching truth, and I was earnestly searching healthfulness. But there was a lot that the church kept under wraps, kept secret. And so that I could see that right away, and that was, I think that's true for a lot of millennials.
Well, yeah. Why do they do that? Why do you go to church, a group of people? Because you've heard. I mean, you've heard me the first 15 minutes of this broadcast. This gathering doesn't do that, right?
Yeah.
But why do churches do that, Sarah? Why do people get together and they pretend and they sweep things under the carpet, or why do they do that?
That's a great question. I mean, I think it reminds me, I mean, the closest example I can think of is the Pharisees. And it's kind of like within Christianity, I think the mainstream church, I think that they pretend because I don't think Christians in general have a good track record of being uncomfortable or being questioned, for that matter. And I think it shows that we really need to humble ourselves and realize, if I don't have an answer, then I need to ask God. I need to ask God for the right answer rather than to completely ignore and shut away the things that I might not know anything about. Because we can't learn anything new, and we can't minister to people, especially if we're not earnestly seeking and using the Spirit to discern. So
would you say in the church today that there are young people experiencing what you experienced, of this underground witchcraft going on with the kids in the church? Do you think that's going on today?
I mean, I know it's going on. I know it's going on, and I know that there are people who come to church on Sunday and they play, and then they go and live the rest of their lives and they do something different. And I see it, and I have compassion for it, because that is really how I lived out my teenage years, was living this double life. And I think so many kids do that. And for a lot of kids too, I think it starts with hiding definitely sexuality. And that is, it's because that secrecy for some reason in the church is so intense.
Yeah.
And it's something that, you know, we just don't go there. We don't talk about.
Right.
That it really opens the door to sin, so much sin, because then you find yourself lying, and then you find yourself, you know, having like two different alter egos, and then you find yourself saying one thing in one space and one thing in another. So
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So okay. So when we come back, I'm gonna talk to Sarah. We're gonna have an open, honest conversation about witchcraft and sexuality in the youth today. In other words, how does witchcraft tie into their sexuality? What did Sarah go through? And I know there's people out there listening right now that have gone through it and even going through it right now. When we come back, stay with me. How would you like to be part of an exciting new faith-based television series? Hey everybody, I'm David Heavener, and I'm making The Last Evangelist. I call it CSI meets the Book of Revelation. We're in the end times and people need to hear the truth. I'm asking you to partner with me. Go to lastevangelist.com, sign the newsletter. If God touches your heart, become a partner. Hey everybody, welcome to David Heavener TV, 7 channels of truth. And what are the 7 channels of truth? Well, in today's world where there's so much chaos and so much turmoil, and it seems the church has dropped the ball, we pick up on it. Thank you for tuning in, thank you for signing up, and God bless you.